How dare you sneak in here? Mom slapped me at Dad's black tie birthday. Then the governor stood up and revealed who I really was. The slap landed before I heard it. That's the strange thing about being hit by your own mother in a 5-star restaurant. Your brain doesn't register the sound. It registers the heat, the metallic taste flooding the inside of your cheek, the way the diamond on her ring catches your lip and opens it like a paper cut, the way every fork in a 40-seat dining room freezes in midair, suspended in a silence so total you can hear the ice settling in the bucket beside you. How dare you sneak in here? My father hissed, while my mother's nails dug so deep into my arm that 4 crescent moons of blood welled up against the black silk of my sleeve. My 6-year-old daughter Maya was sitting in the lap of the governor of our state. She had a purple crayon in her hand. She had been, 2 seconds earlier, drawing a horse on the back of a leather-bound menu, while Governor Michael Chin laughed and pretended the horse had wings. Now she was frozen, mouth open, crayon hovering, looking at her grandmother, a woman she had met exactly twice in her life, like she was looking at a creature that had just crawled out from under the table. My mother didn't see the governor. She didn't see his wife, the First Lady, in her custom Carolina Herrera. She didn't see the 3 plainclothes state troopers who had stopped chewing and were now, very slowly, pushing back their chairs. She only saw me. She only saw the daughter she had told, 3 hours earlier, by text message, not to come. And in that moment, with my lip bleeding, with my baby girl crying, with 25 of my parents' wealthiest friends staring in horror, I felt something I hadn't felt in 7 years. I felt calm, because I had planned for this. I had planned for every single second of this. My name is Olivia Harrison. I am 31 years old, and for the last 7 years, my family has believed I was a failure. It started the summer I was 23. I was in my 2nd year at Georgetown Law, top of my class, on the law review. Already had a 2L summer offer from Skadden in their DC office. My parents were so proud they had a framed photo of me in my graduation gown from undergrad on the mantle of their living room, between the Tiffany lamp and the silver-framed picture of Veronica winning her middle school equestrian medal. Then I got pregnant. The father was a 3rd-year resident at Georgetown Medical. His name was David. He was kind and tired and Lebanese and 29 years old, and the day I told him I was keeping the baby was the day he told me he had a wife in Beirut he had never quite gotten around to mentioning. I never saw him again. I told my parents on a Sunday. I'll never forget it. My mother was arranging tulips in a crystal vase. My father was reading the Wall Street Journal. Veronica, my younger sister, 21 at the time, finishing her undergrad at Vanderbilt, was eating yogurt at the kitchen island with her phone in her hand. I said, "I'm pregnant. I'm keeping it. I'm going to defer law school for a year, have the baby, then finish." My mother set down the tulips. My father set down the paper. Veronica didn't even look up from her phone. She just said into her yogurt, "Oh my God, you're so stupid." My father's exact words were, "You will terminate this pregnancy or you will not be welcome in this house." My mother's exact words were, "You're throwing away everything we gave you. For what? A bastard child from some man who won't even put his name on it?" I left the house that afternoon. I drove the 2 hours back to Georgetown. I sat in my apartment and I cried for about 45 minutes. And then I stopped. I stopped and I made a list. That's the thing nobody tells you about being raised by people like my parents. You learn to make lists. You learn to plan. You learn that emotion is a luxury and strategy is survival. By the end of that night, I had withdrawn from Georgetown Law, deferred, technically, I'd come back, applied to 3 night programs, emailed every legal recruiter in the DMV area, calculated exactly how much I had in savings, $1,800, calculated exactly how much I'd need to survive the next 18 months, $47,000 give or take. Maya was born on a Tuesday in March at 4:17 a.m., weighing 6 pounds, 11 ounces. I held her in the hospital alone. I named her after my grandmother, the only person in my family who had ever told me she was proud of me and who had died when I was 19. I sent my parents a photo. My mother replied, "Don't contact us again until you fix this." I never replied. I finished law school at George Mason at night while working full-time as a paralegal at a mid-sized defense contracting firm called Meridian Defense Solutions. Maya slept in a pack-and-play under my desk during the late shifts. The senior partner, a man named Robert Halloran, used to bring her animal crackers from his daughter's pantry. I graduated in 3 years, passed the bar on the first try, made associate, made senior associate, made counsel, made deputy general counsel. 3 years ago, when I was 28, Robert Halloran called me into his office, slid a contract across his desk, and said, "Olivia, I want you to be my chief legal officer. Base salary, $290,000. With bonuses and equity, last year I made $384,000. I own a 4-bedroom Craftsman in a leafy suburb. I drive a Tesla Model Y. I have a 401k that would make my father weep. Maya has a 529 college savings account currently sitting at $214,000 because every Christmas, every birthday, every random Tuesday I felt grateful, I put money in it. And my family has no idea any of this exists because 7 years ago when I sent them that hospital photo, they decided I was a punchline. And I decided to let them keep believing it. You have to understand the kind of family I come from to understand why. My father, Richard Harrison, is a regional vice president at a private wealth management firm. My mother, Diane Harrison, is on the board of 3 charities and has never worked a day in her life. They live in a house worth $2.3 million in a town where everyone knows everyone. Veronica is 28 now, has never held a job longer than 14 18 months and lives in a condo my parents bought for her in cash. Their entire social world runs on appearances. So when their oldest daughter, the Georgetown Law one, the future partner at a white shoe firm one, got pregnant and ruined her life, they had to do damage control. They had to invent a story. The story they invented was this. Olivia made a mistake. Olivia is a struggling paralegal in a small firm. Olivia lives in a tiny apartment. Olivia is doing the best she can, bless her heart, but she's not really part of the family anymore. That's the line my mother used at parties. I have it on multiple sources. Not really part of the family anymore. Once, about 4 years ago, I bumped into one of my mother's friends, Linda Castellano, who runs the country club's hospitality committee, at a Whole Foods. She looked at me like I was a ghost. Then she looked at Maya, who was 3 at the time, sitting in the cart, eating raspberries. "Oh, honey," Linda said, in that voice rich women use when they want you to know they're being kind. "Your mother told me you were doing so much better. Is the medication helping?" I had never been on medication, but that was the story. Olivia is unwell. Olivia is unstable. Olivia made bad choices. That's the version they sold. The other version, the chief legal officer version, would have meant admitting they were wrong. And my parents would set fire to their own house before they admitted they were wrong about anything. So I let it stand. I let it stand for 7 years. Because here's the thing about strategy. The longer you let someone underestimate you, the bigger the eventual reckoning. I wasn't waiting for revenge. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't sitting in my 4-bedroom house, plotting. I had a child to raise. I had a career to build. I had a life, a real life, a full life, and they weren't in it. But I knew in the back of my mind that the day would come, the day they would need something from me, and I would have to decide what to do. That day arrived on a Wednesday in October. The text came in at 3:47 p.m. I was at my desk on a call with the Pentagon's general counsel about a subcontracting dispute when my phone buzzed. I glanced down. It was from my mother. I muted the call. The text read, "Olivia, your father's 60th birthday dinner is Saturday at Morrison Steakhouse, 7 p.m. It is black tie only. There will be very important guests, including Senator Whitfield and his family. Veronica is bringing Julian Whitfield. You may have heard of him. He is the senator's son and a wonderful young man. Honestly, given the circumstances, it would be best if you did not come. Do not embarrass us. Do not show up." I read it twice, then a third time. Then I looked at the photo on my desk. Maya, age 4, holding a stuffed dolphin at the aquarium. Her hair in 2 crooked pigtails I'd done myself that morning before pre-K. I unmuted the call. "Sorry, Greg," I said to the Pentagon's general counsel. "Continue." We finished the call at 4:30. I closed my laptop. I walked to my window, corner office, 12th floor, view of the river, and I stood there for a long time. I thought about a lot of things. I thought about Maya, about how every Christmas for 6 years she had asked me why she didn't have a grandma and grandpa like her friends, about how I had told her gently that some families just looked different. I thought about the photo of me on my parents' mantle, whether it was still there, whether they had replaced it with one of Veronica. I thought about Senator Whitfield, about Julian Whitfield, and then I thought about something I had not thought about in 7 years. I thought about Beirut. Here's the part you need to know. 3 months earlier, I had handled the biggest case of my career. Meridian had a contract with the state government, a massive cyber defense and infrastructure contract worth $180 million over 5 years. About 6 months in, an independent auditor flagged what looked like a billing irregularity. The state attorney general's office got involved. There were whispers that the state would terminate the contract, claw back the money, and sue us for fraud. It was not fraud. It was an accounting issue caused by a state employee's data entry error. But proving that, untangling it, presenting it cleanly to the AG's office and to the governor, that took 5 months of my life and the lives of 15 attorneys on my team. I personally drafted the brief. I personally sat across the table from the governor's chief counsel. I personally walked into the governor's office on a Thursday afternoon with a binder of documentation I had spent 6 weeks building and laid out the case for why our contract should stand and why the state's $180 million should stay safely allocated to defending its own digital infrastructure. Governor Michael Chin, 3 years into his first term, 58 years old, former U.S. attorney, no nonsense, brilliant, listened to me for 90 minutes. When I finished, he said, "Ms. Harrison, you just saved the taxpayers of this state a tremendous amount of money, and you saved my administration from a scandal that would have eaten us alive." He stood up. He walked around the desk. He shook my hand. He said, "I owe you dinner. Tell me when." It was the kind of thing politicians say, the kind of thing you nod and smile at and never cash in. I had nodded. I had smiled. I had not cashed it in. Until that Wednesday in October at 4:47 p.m. When I picked up my phone and called the direct line his chief of staff had given me. "Olivia," the governor's voice came on, warm and amused. "I was wondering when I'd hear from you." "Michael," I said, "I'd like to take you up on that dinner. Name the place." I named the place. I named the time. I told him to bring his wife. He laughed. He said, "Done. Looking forward to it." Then I hung up. I drove home. I picked up Maya from her after-school program. I made her macaroni and cheese with hot dogs cut up into little stars, the way she liked them. I gave her a bath. I read her 2 chapters of Charlotte's Web. I tucked her in. Then I went into my closet and I pulled out the dress. The dress was a custom Oscar de la Renta gown I had bought 18 months earlier for an industry gala I'd ended up not attending because Maya got the flu. It was black, full length, off the shoulder. It had cost more than my parents' first car. I'd had it cleaned and stored, waiting for an occasion worthy of it. This was the occasion. Saturday morning, I took Maya to get her hair done. I'd bought her a dress too, a tiny black silk thing with a satin bow at the waist. She looked, when she put it on, like a miniature movie star. She twirled in front of the mirror and asked me if she could wear lipstick. A little, I said, the pink one. I told her we were going to a fancy restaurant for dinner. I told her she would meet some important people. I told her very carefully that she might also see her grandmother and grandfather. She got quiet. She said, "Are they going to be mean to you?" My heart cracked open. "They might try," I said, "but it's going to be okay. Mommy has it handled." She nodded, very seriously, the way 6-year-olds nod when they are pretending to understand grown-up things. Then she said, "Mommy, yes, baby? Can I bring my purple crayon?" "You can bring all your crayons." She brought all her crayons. She brought them in a little gold purse I had given her for her birthday. She held my hand all the way to the car. We arrived at Morrison Steakhouse at 6:58 p.m. The governor's car was already there. So was his wife's. So was the unmarked sedan carrying his security detail. The maitre d', a man named Antoine, who I had spoken to 3 times that week to coordinate, recognized me immediately. He had been instructed to seat us at the corner banquette, the one with a clear sightline to the front door. Anyone walking into Morrison's main dining room would see our table within 4 seconds of entering. This was deliberate. Governor Chin stood up when we approached. He was even taller in person than I remembered. He hugged me. A real hug, not a politician hug. And then he knelt down and shook Maya's hand very solemnly. "You must be Maya," he said. "I've heard you're a very important artist." Maya stared at him. "You're the man from TV," she said. "I am. Are you a real king?" The First Lady, Susan Chin, 60 years old, former federal judge, sharp as a razor and twice as warm, laughed out loud. "Honey," she said, "he wishes." We sat down. Maya was given the seat next to the governor. She immediately produced her crayons and began drawing on the back of her menu. The governor leaned over and asked her what she was drawing. "A horse," she said. "What's the horse's name?" "Susan." She pointed at the First Lady. Mrs. Chin nearly choked on her water. We ordered drinks. The governor ordered a Manhattan. His wife ordered a glass of Sancerre. I ordered a glass of Bordeaux. Maya ordered a Shirley Temple with 3 cherries. It was 7:09 p.m. At 7:12, the front doors of Morrison's swept open, and my family arrived. You have to picture it. 25 guests. My mother in the lead, in floor-length emerald green, dripping in the diamonds my father had given her for their 30th anniversary. My father a half step behind her, in a tuxedo, looking exactly like the regional vice president of a wealth management firm at his 60th birthday party. Veronica next, in red, strapless, hair done in a chignon, smiling like a woman who has finally landed the prize she'd been hunting her entire life. And behind her, 3 steps back, Julian Whitfield. Julian Whitfield, age 32, Yale law graduate, partner track at Cravath, son of Senator Marcus Whitfield, R., about whom my sister had been bragging on Instagram for 6 months. Julian Whitfield, who I had last seen in the hallway of the Georgetown Law Library 8.5 years ago, where he had been my study partner for 3 semesters, and the closest thing I'd had to a real friend in law school, and the person who had taken me out for coffee the morning after I'd realized I was pregnant, and held my hand, and told me I was going to be okay no matter what I decided. Julian Whitfield, who had no idea on earth, that the problem sister my new girlfriend kept complaining about was me. I sat very still. I watched my mother scan the room. She didn't see the governor. She didn't see anyone. She saw me. She saw me in a dress that cost more than her car, sitting at a banquette near the window with my 6-year-old daughter on the lap of a man whose face she had not yet processed. Her face did something I had never seen it do before. It went purple. She broke from the group. She marched across the dining room. She moved so fast my father had to half jog to keep up. Veronica trailed behind, smirking, sensing entertainment. Julian, last in the line, was looking at his phone. My mother reached the table. "Olivia," she said, in a voice that carried across 40 seats, "how dare you come here after I told you to stay away?" The man at the next table set down his fork. "Mom," I said quietly, "you're embarrassing yourself." "Embarrassing myself?" Her voice cracked higher. "Look at you, crashing your father's birthday dinner in some ridiculous dress, bothering strangers, dragging that child. That child is your granddaughter. Don't you dare." She grabbed my arm. Her nails, manicured, French-tipped, lacquered to a high gloss, sank into my skin. I felt the sting. I felt the blood. I did not move. That was when my father caught up. "For God's sake, Olivia," he hissed. "Senator Whitfield is right behind us. Take the child and leave through the kitchen. We will deal with this later." That was when Veronica saw her opening. She stepped forward, smiling with all her teeth. "Look at you," she said to me, "pretending to be somebody. Where'd you steal the dress, Liv? Rent the runway? You're a paralegal. This is black tie. Tonight is about Julian's family, not your sad little fantasy." And right on cue, the slap, my mother's open palm, my cheekbone, the flash of pain, the metallic taste, the warm trickle at the corner of my mouth. Maya screamed. It was a small scream, the kind a child makes when she is trying very hard to be brave. The First Lady gathered her up off the governor's lap and pulled her into her own arms and covered her ears with her hands. The dining room had gone completely silent. That was when Julian Whitfield, having finally put his phone away, looked up. He looked at Veronica, then at my mother, then at me. His face went the color of old paper. "Olivia," he whispered. "Olivia Harrison?" Veronica grabbed his arm. "Julian, ignore her. She's my problem sister. I told you about her." "Wait." He pulled his arm back like she'd burned him. He stared at me. "You're her sister?" "Don't talk to her, Julian." My mother snapped. She's nothing. She's nobody. She's a paralegal who got pregnant by some doctor and ruined her. That was when the governor set down his wine glass. It was the smallest sound. A glass on white linen, but it landed in that silent room like a gavel. He stood up, 6'3", tuxedo, bristling. He passed Maya very gently to his wife. He stepped around the table. He walked slowly until he was standing directly between my mother and me. He did not look at me. He looked at her. "Mrs. Harrison," he said. His voice was so quiet that people 2 tables away leaned forward to hear it. "I would think very, very carefully about your next sentence." My father's mouth fell open. You could literally see the synapses firing behind his eyes. The face on the television, the face on the cover of the magazine in his own study. "Governor Chin?" he stammered. "That's correct." The governor's eyes flicked slowly to my mother, to Veronica, back to my father. "And the woman you just slapped in front of this restaurant, in front of my wife, in front of her own daughter." He paused. I have replayed this pause in my head 1,000 times. It was maybe 2 seconds long. It felt like a year. "Is the reason this state still has $180 million in its budget." The wine glass in my mother's hand slipped. It didn't shatter. It just tipped, and the Bordeaux poured out, dark and slow, down the front of her emerald gown. She didn't notice. The governor smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Now," he said, "shall I tell them who Olivia really is?" You could have heard a pin drop. I want you to picture for a second what it looked like to the room. A 6'3" governor of the state, a first lady cradling a sobbing 6-year-old, a woman in a $14,000 gown bleeding from her arm where her own mother had clawed her, a wine-soaked socialite frozen mid-curse, a regional VP of wealth management about to wet himself, a scheming younger sister with her smirk dying in real time, and off to the side, Julian Whitfield, who had now, very visibly, taken 3 full steps away from my sister. Behind Julian, the rest of the party had started arriving, 25 people in evening wear, several of them in the process of recognizing the governor. One of them, a tall, silver-haired man with a senator's bearing, was Marcus Whitfield himself. Senator Whitfield had stopped walking. He was looking at the governor. He was looking at me. He was, I realized, going to be the second person in this restaurant tonight to recognize my face. I stood up. "Michael," I said, "it's all right. It is not all right, Olivia. It's all right. I'll handle it." I touched my lip with the back of my hand. I looked at the blood. I let everyone in the room see me look at the blood. Then I turned to my mother. "Mom," I said, "you need to sit down. Don't you dare speak to me like you need to sit down before you fall down. Dad, get her a chair." My father, on autopilot, fumbled a chair from the next table and sort of half-collapsed my mother into it. She sat there in her wine-soaked dress, staring at me like she had never seen me before in her life. I turned to Veronica. "Where do you want to start?" I said. "What? You said I borrowed this dress. Do you want to start there? Or do you want to start with the part where you've spent 6 years telling people I'm a struggling paralegal?" She opened her mouth. I held up a hand. "Veronica, stop. I'm going to do you a kindness. The kindness is this. I'm going to let you leave this restaurant before Julian finds out the rest. So if I were you, I'd take Mom and Dad and I'd go." "The rest of what?" she demanded. Julian stepped forward. "Olivia," he said. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Julian. It's good to see you. I'm sorry it's like this." What is happening?" I looked at my sister. "Julian was my study partner in law school," I said. "We took torts and Civ Pro together. He was the one who drove me to the OB appointment when I was 6 weeks pregnant and didn't know what to do." Veronica's mouth fell open. "He bought me coffee for 3 weeks straight when I was sick with morning sickness in property class. He's a wonderful person. I'm glad he's doing well." I turned to Julian. "I'm sorry," I said. "I had no idea she was seeing you. I haven't spoken to my family in 7 years." He stared at me, then at Veronica, then back at me. "You're at Cravath now?" he said. "No, I'm Chief Legal Officer at Meridian Defense Solutions." He blinked. You're that Olivia Harrison? The one who handled the Meridian State contract last quarter?" "Yes." "Jesus Christ." He turned to Veronica. His face had gone from white to a kind of hot, mortified pink. "You told me," he said slowly, "that your sister was a paralegal with a drug problem who you had cut off because she was unstable around your family." "Julian, you told me," he said louder, "that your family didn't talk about her because she had stolen money from your mother." "Julian?" "My father," Julian said, even louder, "asked you about her specifically 3 weeks ago because he had heard her name come up in a state government meeting and you told him she was dead. You told him she had OD'd. The whole restaurant heard him." Senator Whitfield was now standing about 10 feet behind his son. His face was unreadable in the way only senators' faces are unreadable. I turned to my mother. My mother, for the first time in 7 years, looked for 1 full second, afraid of me. "Mom," I said quietly, "is that the story you've been telling?" She didn't answer. "Is that the story Veronica heard?" She didn't answer. I exhaled. "Okay," I said. "I want to be honest with you about something." I had planned, walking into Morrison's that night, to do exactly what I did. I had planned to be seen with the governor. I had planned for my mother to lose her composure. I had planned to let Michael, who is, in addition to everything else, a man who hates seeing women treated badly, defend me publicly. But I had not planned for the rest of it. I had not planned for my sister to have spent 5 years telling a senator's family that I had died of a drug overdose. I had not planned for Julian. I had not planned for the fact that, sitting in my purse, beside my phone, I had a folder of documents I had brought along, not because I expected to need them, but because I had spent so many years preparing for a moment like this that I no longer left the house without them. The folder contained tax returns for the last 5 years, a copy of my employment contract at at Meridian. A letter from Governor Chin's office formally thanking me for my work on the state contract. A photograph of my house, Maya's school records, a printed text from my mother, dated 3 hours earlier, telling me not to come, and at the bottom, a copy of a Facebook post my mother had made 11 months earlier on the anniversary of The Daughter We Lost, in which she had, and I quote, written that her oldest child had succumbed to her demons and that the family was still healing. I had screenshotted it the day it was posted. I had filed it away. I had not, until that exact moment in Morrison's, decided what I was going to do with it. I made my decision in about 4 seconds. I sat back down. I reached into my purse. I took out the folder. I slid it across the table to Julian. You'll want to give this to your father, I said. I'm sure he has questions. Julian opened it. He read it for about 30 seconds. His hand went to his mouth. He walked very slowly back to his father and handed him the folder. The senator read it. He looked up at my mother. He looked at my sister. He looked at me. He said in a voice that was very quiet but extremely clear, Mrs. Harrison, I think it's best if we leave. Marcus, please. This is a misunderstanding. It is not a misunderstanding. Julian, get your coat. We're going home. Marcus, Diane, don't. He turned and he walked out of the restaurant. Julian followed. Julian paused at the door, looked back at me, mouthed, I'm so sorry, and then he was gone. The 23 remaining guests, my parents' friends, my father's colleagues, my mother's charity board, stood there in their evening wear, watching. A man I recognized as my father's law school roommate cleared his throat. He said, Richard, I think we'll head home too. And just like that, in the span of about 90 seconds, the entire room of guests began politely, devastatingly, walking out. By 7:31 p.m., the table reserved for the Harrison's 60th birthday party was empty. My mother sat in her wine-soaked dress, staring at her hands. My father sat next to her, white as the linen, saying nothing. Veronica stood in the middle of the dining room in red, alone. She turned to me. You did this, she whispered. You did this on purpose. No, Veronica, I said. I came to dinner. You did this. I want to tell you what happened next. But first, I want to tell you what didn't. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I didn't take a single photo. I didn't post anything online. I didn't even tell anyone at work on Monday what had happened. Here's what I did. I asked Antoine, the maitre d', to please bring my family a fresh round of drinks on my tab and to please put their entire birthday dinner on my account when they were ready to order. He looked at me like I was insane. Ma'am, he said. Please, I said. Whatever they want to eat, it's on me. Then I stood up. I gathered Maya from the First Lady's arms. I thanked the governor and Mrs. Chin for coming. I kissed my daughter on the top of her head and asked her if she wanted dessert. She nodded. We walked slowly past my parents' table. I stopped. I looked down at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom, I said, Maya is going to be in a school recital next month. It's on November 18th. The address is on the card in your hand. I had slipped a card into her hand without her noticing. You don't have to come. You probably shouldn't. But she's your granddaughter, and she's wonderful, and I thought you should know. I waited. She didn't speak. I walked away. Maya and I had dessert at the bar. She ordered a sundae the size of her head. Antoine, the maitre d', brought it with 2 extra cherries and a little chocolate elephant on top. The governor and Mrs. Chin joined us. We talked for about 45 minutes about nothing in particular. Maya told the First Lady about her stuffed dolphin. The First Lady told Maya about her grandchildren. At 9:14 p.m., I drove home. Maya fell asleep in the car. I carried her in, took off her tiny black dress, put her in her pajamas, and tucked her into bed. Then I sat at my kitchen table, in my own black gown, and I cried for about 20 minutes. Not because I was sad, because I was free. I'll give you the aftermath because I know you want it. Senator Whitfield's office released a brief, polite statement 2 days later, confirming that Julian had ended his relationship with Veronica Harrison. The statement did not give a reason. It did not need to. 3 days after that, the Whitfield family's communications director, a woman who, in a different timeline, would have been my colleague at Skadden, quietly leaked to a friendly reporter that the Harrison family had been found to have made repeated dishonest statements about a close family member, and that the relationship had ended on those grounds. It was a small item. It ran in 2 newspapers and 1 political blog. It was enough. My mother's charity board asked her to step down within a month. The official reason was personal restructuring. The real reason was that Linda Castellano, the same Linda who had asked me about my medication in Whole Foods, had been quietly forwarding screenshots of my mother's old Facebook post about her lost daughter to half the board, with a note, Olivia is alive. She is the CLO of Meridian. The mother lied to all of us. Linda came to my office unannounced 6 weeks after the dinner. She was carrying a casserole. She cried. She apologized for an hour. I forgave her. I meant it. My father took early retirement in February. The wealth management firm had been looking to restructure, and his association with a publicly humiliating family scandal, even a quiet one, was a convenient pretext. He kept his pension. He lost his title. He lost his office. Veronica moved to Arizona. I'm told she got a job in real estate. I haven't spoken to her since. My mother sent me a letter in late January. It was 8 pages long. It was the closest thing to an apology I will probably ever get from her, and it was still not really an apology. It said things like, I always loved you, and we made mistakes, and we are very proud of you now. That last sentence, now, told me everything I needed to know. I wrote back a 1-page letter. I told her that Maya was thriving. I told her that Maya would like to know her grandmother. I told her that if she wanted to be in Maya's life, she would have to come to my city, on my terms, and that she would never, under any circumstance, speak to me or my child the way she had spoken to us at Morrison's. I told her that the door was open about 6 inches. I told her she could push gently. I have not heard back. That's all right. I didn't write the letter for her. I wrote it for Maya. So that one day, when Maya is old enough to ask me what happened, I can tell her honestly. I gave her every chance. Julian called me 3 weeks after the dinner. He wanted to apologize. He wanted to know if I needed anything. He wanted to know about Maya. We met for coffee. It wasn't a date. It wasn't a reunion. It was 2 people who had been friends a long time ago, sitting across from each other in a quiet cafe, trying to figure out what to say. He told me halfway through that he had thought about me a lot over the years, that he had wondered what happened, that he had assumed I'd finished law school and moved on. I told him I had. He laughed. He said, "Olivia, you didn't just finish. You're running a defense contractor's legal team. You're advising the governor. You're crushing it. I'm doing okay. You're doing more than okay." We finished our coffee. We exchanged numbers. We have not, in the 6 months since, gone on a date. We are friends. We text occasionally. He sent Maya a stuffed dolphin for her birthday because I had told him, in passing, that she loved them. It arrived in a box the size of a small refrigerator. Maya named it Julian. She is 6. She does not know who he is. That's fine. It has now been about 8 months since the dinner. Maya is in 1st grade. She likes math, the color purple, and a boy in her class named Theo, who, she has informed me, is going to be her husband. I am not in a hurry to confirm or deny this. I am still at Meridian. We got the state contract renewed for another 5 years. Governor Chin's wife, Susan, the first lady, the former federal judge, calls me once a month to ask if I want to come for dinner. I have gone twice. Maya considers Mrs. Chin her honorary grandmother. Mrs. Chin, who has 3 actual grandchildren of her own, considers this entirely fair. I think about my parents sometimes, less than I used to. I think about the moment my mother slapped me, the moment specifically when I realized that nothing she did to me that night could touch me because she no longer had the power. She didn't know it yet. She'd believed for 7 years that I was the daughter she had molded and abandoned, the failed one, the cautionary tale. She didn't realize that the cautionary tale had built a life she could not have imagined, in a city she had never visited, with a daughter she had never met, using the brain she had tried to break. The brain she had tried to break was the brain that had kept her wine glass on its coaster and her secret in its folder, and her granddaughter safe in the lap of a governor. I think about that a lot. I think about my daughter, who is 6, who that night sat in the lap of the most powerful man in our state, drawing a horse with wings. I think about how she looked at her grandmother, really looked that 1 second before the slap landed, and how I could see, even then, that she understood exactly what kind of woman she was looking at. Children know. They always know. That's what those women never understood. That whatever lies you tell about your own child, the world finds out eventually. And whatever cruelty you teach the next generation grows up and walks into a restaurant in a dress that cost more than your car, and she decides, in one quiet moment, whether to be cruel back. I decided not to be cruel. I decided to be precise. The slap healed in a week. The bruise on my arm took longer. The crescents of my mother's fingernails left 4 tiny scars on my forearm that you can still see if you look closely. I keep them. I don't cover them up. Every now and then, when I'm in a deposition, or sitting across from opposing counsel, or walking into the governor's mansion for a dinner I would once have died to be invited to, I glance down at my arm and I see them. 4 little crescents. 4 little reminders that the people who tried to hide me like a dirty secret didn't realize they were hiding the wrong daughter. That the woman they called a paralegal walked into that restaurant and walked out a legend. And that the 6-year-old girl drawing a horse with wings on the back of a leather menu, the one who heard her grandmother call her mother nothing, will grow up knowing exactly who her mother is. A woman who waited 7 years. A woman who picked up the phone. A woman who didn't have to lift a finger in the end because the truth lifted it for her. If you made it this far, you already know what the dress cost. You already know what the silence was worth. The only thing left is whether the next time someone tells you you're nothing, you remember. The people who write you off are the ones you eventually invite to dinner, just to watch them figure out who's been at